Hey guys, welcome back to the shop. I'm Dan, and this is my garage. We are continuing on with the odyssey of rebuilding my grandfather's 1945 International K3 one-ton truck. Just quick review of the project. We are taking the one-ton truck and putting Ford axles under the front and rear, and dropping in replacing the original drivetrain with a Ford 289 V8 and a T18 or NP 435 transmission. Rear axle's a 8.8 rear end out of a 94 F-150. Front axle is a I-beam axle out of a 1960 F-100. Today we're gonna start a new portion of the project, moving on from the spring brackets, which I finished those off camera because they were irritating me. I'll show you where those are at in a moment, but we're going to start in on the reconditioning of the F-150 rear axle. So that's going to be a series of videos. Going to go through replacing the axle bearings, axle seals, and inspecting the ring and pinion valve mesh, replacing the pinion seal, possibly having to replace the pinion crush sleeve, and then going on to rebuilding the brakes and getting the axle all rebuilt, put back together. So when we're ready, we can just roll it underneath the truck and bolt it up in place. So stay tuned. We'll get work tearing the axle down and start inspecting it. Like I said, I skipped over finishing the forward brackets for the rear suspension because those were fighting me as well. For finishing, using Rust-Oleum Rusty Metal Primer and then Rust-Oleum Semi-Gloss Black. I'm just trying these to see how they work out. See how well of a finish I'm going to get from this. I know there's purpose-built or purpose-designed chassis paints, but this is available off the shelf, and it's affordable, and it's better than what was on the truck originally, and it'll allow me to touch it up over time if needs be. So I have 2 coats of primer on these parts, and once this all dries, I will put the black on it and see how well that turns out. So yeah, I will once this does dry, I'll sand it down to get the runs off of it. But since these are pretty rough cast parts, like especially this right forward bracket, you can see how bad the casting was on that. The pitting from the actual casting, and on this bracket here, you can see the pitting from the casting itself. That wasn't from the corrosion; that's from the casting. Yeah. So yeah, you can see the texture from the casting. So this actually, I'm just brushing this on because there's no reason to. Well, there's a reason. There's plenty of reason to spray on, but I don't have spray equipment yet. I'm just seeing how well it lays on. This is actually pretty thin paint, and it leveled out pretty well. So that's these brackets. So just letting this cure up, and then I'm gonna try the Rust-Oleum Black to see how durable of a finish this will give me. But that's these. I didn't finish filming these because it was irritating me, and I just wanted to get them done. We got the drums that I pulled off this Ford axle. Doing a little inspection, there's some copper anti-seize inside these. So these drums have been on and off a couple times. And that makes sense because this one, I took a wire wheel to it, cleaned it up, and took a measurement across the diameter of the drum. And we don't have enough material to turn these. So we're going to have to buy new drums when we get to that point. All right, more shop updates. Engine assembly coming along. Got the headers on it. Had to take some time off camera to flatten the header flanges, and then used high temp RTV to help seal along with Velcro gaskets. Got the distributor dropped in. Tell you what, fitting a GM distributor on a Ford, even though it's got a Ford pedestal, doesn't like the fit. So it's not sitting ideally. I'd rather the vacuum vacuum advance pod sitting out front, but because of where the heater outlet is, I had to find a place where I could get a good quarter turn of advancement. So this is how it sits, with the pod sitting back here, but also gives nice access to all the connections. I got all of our water temp sensor buried down in there. Oil pressure sensor installed. Fuel pump. Carb is just temp installed here. It's just sitting on here. Nuts are loose, and that was for spark plug wire routing. This is a universal plug wire set that I had lying around that cut to length and wired it up. Probably looks kind of weird, but I wired this per Ford. So right here is the number one spark plug terminal, and that's where a Ford would be. And then number one cylinder on a Ford is right here. So carburetor still needs to be clean and rebuilt. It's just on there for staging. And I got the PCV, positive crankcase ventilation system, set up, plumbed into the carburetor. I have the vacuum connected to the vacuum advance, connected to the manifold vacuum port, opposed to the timed vacuum port. So it has vacuum at idle and just off idle. That way we have better throttle response and better engine cooling. Which it plays nicer with non-stock camshafts. And playing around, I was checking the Ford reproduction websites like CJ Pony Parts. I think that's one of them. I found these reproduction Ford Falcon Sprint V8 valve cover decals that I just had to have because they spice up the engine. Breaks up the blue of the valve cover and kind of says something about the engine. I think it looks neat and not totally off for a 289, just not of this color. These would have came on a 63, 64, 65, 260 or 289 in a Falcon. So that would have been a black engine block with gold valve covers, I believe. So not a corporate blue, engine from 1966, which this one's painted to emulate. So got the alternator bracket installed. Don't have anything installed on this side. I'm going to be installing a vintage air conditioning, power steering and AC compressor bracket on this side of the engine, because probably gonna do power steering, maybe, don't know yet. We'll have to see on that. Maybe we'll have to see, but that's something that we can install later. because nice thing about a 289, 302 block is all that stuff's going to be always available. So that's shop updates. So let's get on to tearing into our 1994 8.8 inch F-150 rear end. We can tell by the way it is. Still have the code on here, 30888. So it's a 308 gear ratio, 8.8, and the rest of this 2E18 and all that tells it's a 94 rear end out of an F-150, and that's an open differential. So that's what we have. So reposition the camera and we'll start draining this thing down. All right, before I go any farther, I should say I already have spring mounts. I got a camera right here and here welded to this axle for the International. The Ford was spring over, axle under. That means the spring is mounted to the top of the axle. And the International is axle over or spring under the axle. So the axle sits on top of the springs. So I did this this past fall. And so, yeah, that's already done. And then the Ford shock mounts, I cut those off and cleaned up the axle. And then before filming today, I wire brushed all the heavy, chunky rust off of the axle as well. And then I already stripped off the brake lines. But the brake lines, I'm going to have to, they were kind of crusty, so I'll be making new brake lines for this later, and a later date as well. So I'm gonna do get some tools, more tools. First, got to drain it because to replace the axle bearings and axle seals, we got to pull the axles out. This is a C-clip axle, unlike the 9-inch where the axles bolt in. So, and this has been serviced before because it has RTV. So I'm hoping that this is going to be a clean axle. I got this axle off of Facebook Marketplace. Came out of a Texas truck that was scrapped in Wisconsin, so. And this looks like ultra black, so. After we're done with all the axle work, we'll hit it with some rust converter, and then we'll paint it. Too bad that tag's torn. Gear oil doesn't look too terrible. I mean, there's some... Actually, it looks really good. It's tipped up and draining. No big metallic chunks. Not an excessive amount of RTV on this gasket, used as a gasket. So that is both good signs that this thing was serviced well and properly maintained, or reasonably maintained. I'm not seeing any indication that that this diff cover is about to rust through either. So that's good as well. Alright, pause the video there, let this drip a bit, and then we'll come back and inspect. Alright, got it cleaned up a little bit, got the little fluid dumped out, cleaned out the inside of the differential housing with some mineral spirits. Didn't find any big chunks of gear. Got the dial indicator set up on the very outside of the ring, and looking for between 6 and 12 thousandths of an inch, and we are of play, so we are about 12 thousandths. So being a used differential, we're right at 12, so I'm happy with that. I am pleased with that. So, I mean, it's a chance you take getting, going with used parts, but all right. I'm happy with that. Another thing we can do is using some axle grease, check the camera. Hopefully not gonna wash out. Perfect. Load up some inspect the this is the wrong grease for this. This is very much the wrong grease. But doing that, this actually worked on the first one. Let's see if I'm bringing close. You can kind of see on this first, what you're looking for is the half moon shape where the gear mesh together, you want it halfway in between. You want it halfway in the width of the gear and not all the way down into the root, but not just riding on the outside edge of the gear. So we're actually good meshing wise. And then you kind of want to do it backwards too, because your vehicle goes both directions. So all right. I don't know if you can see. Yeah, we're hitting in the middle. Let's see if I can. Getting grease everywhere. Yeah, on this tooth, you can see we're riding more or less in the middle of the gear. So this ring and pinion set is actually in fairly okay shape. I don't know how many miles are on this axle, but we're actually pretty good. And that grease you can just leave in there because that's just going to end up dissolving in with the gear oil. But what we're after, you know, what's better to use is like a white lithium grease, something that has better contrast and kind of will stay on there better. But this is what I had, so it's what I used. But really, all that doesn't mean anything because I got to pull the drive flange off anyway to replace the pinion seal. So a lot of that has to be redone. But I'll do that off camera. Well, we'll see. But that's just inspection to make sure that we have a reasonably good axle in. And it turns out we have an axle that was serviced in its lifetime and wasn't abused too much. Okay, so what are we doing? All right. Pull my gloves. But what we're after, to get the axles out of this, you can kind of see them. To get the axle shafts out of it, this C-clip right here, we have to get that out to pull the axles out because that's the only thing retaining the axles. So we have to pull this pin out of the spider gears. To get that pin out, we have to pull this bolt off. And looking at this bolt, the corners are wore. So this bolt's been out. This cross pin's been out. So this axle's had new seals put in it at some point in its service life. So I'll get a wrench for that. That's probably 8mm if I had to make a guess. This is an 8/8. So, yep, 8mm. Should not be that tight. All right, give pry bar. Yeah, that's unnecessarily tight for that pin. So all that pin's doing is keeping that. All that bolt is doing is keeping that pin in. Yeah. Unless someone put blue Loctite on it. Yeah, there's thread sealant on that. All right. So technically that's not a bolt, that's a threaded pin. As you can see, our spider cross pin is already coming out. So probably should get something cleanish to put all of our hardware on, like the gift cover. Some galling on the pin for the spider gears. Someone was doing some burnouts. So spider gears can actually stay in. Get me a magnet. Okay. I'll show you on this one since you can see it. Slide the axle in, and the E-clip or the C-clip will just come right off. And then and now, happens. Now, what the worst part is, I was just at my storage unit, and I have a whole roll of oil absorbing mat there that I could be using. And while we're here, might as well inspect the axle. Doesn't look like we have any noticeable wear or the bearing. So the seal rides right here, bearing rides right there. I can't feel anything with my thumbnail. So, all right, bring in closer. Look at the teeth. These are in pretty good shape. Like if this is coming from experience, because there's a portion where like it's only down to here where it actually rides in the spider gear. And if this was really beat on, hammer on, you could be able to see where these splines would be twisted. Like it would here, let me get a pointer. All right. You can see where the spline is in line. Like if this was abused, like there would be a jog right there where the upper portion of this spline would not be where the portion of the spline that takes the torque in from the differential from the spider gears would not be in line with the lower portion of the spline. So yeah, this is, I know that because I was a teenager with a pickup truck, and I used to do burnouts. and I had to replace axle shafts because I damaged spines to the point where at one point it eventually stripped off the splines. So I'm happy with that. This is just the driver's side. Is that my blood? Oh no, that's just grease. I was like, is that my blood on the axle already? So yeah, I'm happy with that. So let's and then in here outside we have the seal, and inside we got the bearing. The bearing actually looks good. So all this is gonna get replaced. So let's go over the passenger side. Of course, I got a drain pan. Got drain pans everywhere. Yep, let's go to passenger side. Pull that axle shaft out. Take a look at that. Hopefully, it's much the same. This time, I got a drip pan underneath it. Okay. Inspect our seal surfaces. Got a little ridge where the seal meets the bearing, but this one's actually in better shape. Bring it closer. Yeah, these spawns are actually in better shape than the driver's side axle shaft. Looks like it. Correction, nope, these are hammered a little bit. But, yeah, I can see it there. This had some neutral drops. Seen some neutral drops in its life. Or some clutch have been dumped on this a few times in its life, but I'm okay with it. I've driven worse. I've had worse. So all right. Let us next pull these backing plates off. We don't necessarily need to pull them off for just seal and bearing replacements, but we're going to be rebuilding them, putting new brakes and everything in it. But it'll just be easier to deal with the brakes, clean them up elsewhere. So we'll pop off these backing plates, and we're just going to zip those off using the impact, because 9/16. Yeah, 9/16. There's no reason to. I changed the torque on this because in automatic, when this thing senses a drop in torque, it cuts power. That way you're not just spinning on the end threads, damaging them. So it's not, well, you shouldn't have got a Ryobi. It does that to protect the hardware. See, and the number 2 torque setting, it'll just sit and measurements. Identical on this one. There we go. One off. Move the camera out of the way. Yeah. There. Sorry, that got a little violent there. Alright, I took a wire wheel to everything, cleaned up the chunky rust. Everything else, like I said, I'm going to take, after I'm done doing the work, and then take degreaser to it, and then hit it with a rust converter, and then I'll be painting it. Alright, so let's see about getting these seals out. Alright, let's see what I did. I did this about 24 years ago, because I used to have a 93 F-150, which had the same rear axle in it. All right. And that was one of the first jobs I had to do to that truck after I bought it. Even in the shot I'm doing here, I got this vice grip adapter. Slide hammer. Kinda. Since not reusing the seal. Anyway. Just like that. And that bearing's not bad, but since I have one, I might as well. And I got this really terrible hook. That might be just enough hook on the bearing. Let me think here. That's not gonna work. Let me see what I can cobble together. All right, I'll be back. All right, I cobbled together part of a two-job puller onto my slide hammer, and I got it wedged up and behind. So well, I did something. That just popped out the rollers. All right, stand by. All right, I busted the bearing roller cage out, so I got a hook right on the bearing shell. I'm having trouble getting a. There, I don't know what the trouble was. It came right out. Perfect. I don't know why everyone was so worried about that. That was. All right. Yeah, this had a set of bearings in it before. I can see where they struggled getting the previous bearing out of it. Yeah, it doesn't look like they cut anything, but I can see where they struggled. So, I'm trying to get not after all the old gear oil out, just enough. Just enough so it's not an absolute mess. Oh, still recording? Crap. One thing I didn't do, I didn't verify that my bearings are right before I pulled everything apart, but looks like it's correct. All right. So, hopefully this goes in well. This bearing has a pretty good radius. Bearings bi-directional, so it doesn't matter either way. So it's got a pretty good radius, and the axle tube has a good radius, so it should be self-starting to a certain point. So I'm just gonna tap it around with a brass hammer, not steel. You want to use softer than what you're driving if you can. And I'm gonna, since we're now flush with the axle tube, I'm gonna, ideally you'd have a bearing driver that would have a pilot that would fit inside the axle, the inner diameter of the bearing, and would ride just on the outer race of the bearing. But I don't have one of those, so what you can do is evenly drive it, and once you get the bearing inside of its race, if you got a socket that's the proper diameter thereabouts, you can use that. And hammer it in, and you know you hit the bottom when your tone changes, because that's that bearing bottoming out on the back side, on the lip. And double check that you're not binding up by if your bearing spins freely, which this one does. So we're good. And then next is our seal. Seals. Two ways to put a seal. This is the outside. That's the inside, because the juices, the oil, is going to want to push against the seal to assist with the seal, not push against the seal to get out. So, and the same applies. Gently tap it in. Gently tap it in to get it started. And try not to hit the rubber of the seal, and just tap it around until it's more or less flush with the outside of the axle tube. And right there, that's the new bearing and new seal on this side. All right, let's do this side. That was so much fun. It's worth doing a second time. So, first step, get a bite of the now I think about it, I don't think I ever did wheel bearings on my 93. I think I just did seals. I think it was my 1980 F-150 that I did wheel bearings, and that was a 9-inch. So wheel bearings, or axle bearings, were pressed onto the axle shafts, and those on that were pressed onto the axle shafts. So I had to send those out to get done. All right, might as well break up this this roller retainer and pull these bearing rollers out right away. Another way you could have done this, or I could have done this, was use a die grinder and grind through the edge of the bearing race. Notch it and then just break the bearing up that way, or grind through enough, hit it with a chisel to split the bearing, and that sometimes takes the pressure off enough where it makes it easier to slide it out. All right, got the rollers out, then we can hook on right onto that lip. Okay. How did I do this last time? There. Oh. Easy peasy. Second time's always easier. Like most things in life. Welcome to Dan's International Garage. Vehicle maintenance, restoration, and life lessons. Uncle Larry would be proud. The Uncle Larry reference is a friend of mine in high school, still a good friend. He's back in Wisconsin. His Uncle Larry had a farm, still has a farm, outside of the town we went to high school in, and I kind of traded labor for access to his to a bay in his shop. So I work on farm equipment, work on his personal vehicles, so I could use his shop, use his garage. And Uncle Larry, he enjoyed his beverages, he enjoyed his beer, and if you were lucky when Uncle Larry drank, you got philosophical Uncle Larry, and he would give you life lessons. He would bestow upon you life lessons, and it was always comical. The words of wisdom that Uncle Larry had to give. Uncle Larry had to give 17, 18, 19, I think up to 20, 22-year-old. Yeah, I think that's when I moved away. Yeah, up to 22-year-old, 17 to 22-year-old Dan. Yeah, this one had a wheel bearing put in it too at some point. You can see where they fought getting the wheel bearing out, but overall, I am pleased with the condition of this axle. Definitely worth the $150 I paid for this axle. Definitely. All right, tip this up and pour cleaning fluid out of it. Much the same. Start the bearing. I didn't even see if the whole thing was in frame. I'll try not to talk on this one. Just listen to the sound. Hopefully it turns up on the over the camera. See how hollow it sounds as I'm driving the bearing in? Oh, we're off center. And you want to check that periodically too. Make sure you're driving in square. Did you hear that at the end? It was hollow, 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 solid, solid, solid. Yeah, that was the bearing hitting bottom on its stop. Yeah, the bearing started going in crooked at the beginning there, but noticed it because the sound changed on me. It stopped being hollow and started being solid because it stopped moving. And so instead of hitting it harder, you stop, you see what's going on, and like, oh, I'm getting crooked because the depth was different between the two sides. And so you correct by giving it some taps on the shallow side, and it straightened up and started to drive right. And for the seal, what I like doing is the seal again. There's a chamfer or a bevel. I guess that'd be more of a bevel because it's not really a curve. So there's a bevel there and a chamfer there. So they're kind of self-starting, but get it started, tipped in one spot, then hammer it opposite, and just hold your thumb on the opposite side, so it's less prone to come out. And then just tap it around. What I do with my brass. There. And that's both sides. And that's about it for the night. What I'm going to do, since I am not done with this axle, I'm not done with the differential portion of it, because I'm going to be replacing the pinion seal, which will require me to break the torque on the pinion nut. So that'll ruin the setting on the pinion crush sleeve. So this all the differential is going to have to all come back apart. I'm going to throw the axles in just to have a safe place to put them. I'll put a smear of oil of grease on the bearings and the seals so they're not dry. And then I'll put the C-clips and everything back in so I don't lose them. And I won't put the brakes back on because I want to clean the brake backing plates up and load the backing plates up with all the new brake parts, which is going to be a different video. So I'll get the axle stabbed in and get this closed up, and then come back for the sign off. All right, that's another video down. Today we started in on the rear axle refresh. A lot of good news with that axle. I got real lucky with that purchase, especially for the price I paid for it. I got that axle for $150 marketplace, sight unseen. The free play of the ring and pinion, the lash of the ring and pinion is acceptable for a used axle. The wear on the axle splines is acceptable for a used axle. And by the looks of it, that thing has seen routine service. Fluid changes. The fluid that came out of it had some metal in it, but no chunks, just normal wear. There wasn't any big pieces floating in the bottom of the differential housing, so that's good. And looked like it had at least one set of bearings and seals, axle bearings and axle seals put in it. So it's looking real good. We got we got it cleaned up, sort of. Wire brushed it off. Got new wheel bearings, new axle bearings, axle seals put in it. Got the brakes pulled off of it. Gonna do those separately. Next step, I think. Next step is replacing the pinion seal, getting that off, and I'll have to get the crush sleeve. Pick that up at O'Reilly's. I'm only home from work tomorrow. It's in right now, but it's too late. It's dinner time and time for a shower. Real promising with this axle. Yeah, I think it's going to come together real quick. Got brake rotors. I don't know, but probably gonna have to get new brake rotors. There's just not enough. I don't know if there's enough material in those to turn them. So probably gonna have to look at getting new brake rotors. But it is what it is. So thanks for watching. Hope you enjoyed this. Finally, we're not on the suspension brackets, thankfully. No recent subscribers. Hope that'll change with us getting into more maintenance items instead of that, shoddy fabrication. So like, share, subscribe, do all the things, and see you all next time.